Reporting this week from CNN's Capitol Hill team says members of the far-right Freedom Caucus group, they're struggling to agree on priorities and tactics. One of the disagreements is a move to oust one of their own, Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene. Joining me now to talk about all of these issues is a member of the House Freedom Caucus, Representative Ken Buck of Colorado. Thank you for joining me. Nice to see you in person. We have a lot to talk about, but I want to start with the vote on Marjorie Taylor Greene. First question is it accurate that the Freedom Caucus voted to remove her?
I think that's accurate. I wasn't at the meeting. My understanding is that they voted to remove her, and the chairman has tried to contact her to let her know, and there haven't been any return phone calls. But this week, she will undoubtedly get notified. How
did you vote?
I did not. I wasn't there.
If you were there, how would you have voted? Do you want her to be in the Freedom Caucus or out?
It's a good question. I don't want her to be in the Freedom Caucus, but I wouldn't vote to kick her out. Once she's in the Freedom Caucus, I think she is what she is.
Your colleague, Ralph Norman, noted that it's almost impossible, just more broadly, for the Freedom Caucus to do what it needs to do because there's an 80% threshold that you've set for yourselves. Should we expect that this is the way that the caucus is going to go? And is that the way that you believe that it has the most influence? Meaning it's gotten pretty large. And if 80% of you have to agree on anything, how are you going to have the kind of influence on the Republican leadership that you want to?
So first, I think the Freedom Caucus was founded to have discussions among conservatives so that people could privately bounce thoughts off of each other and come to some conclusion. To have a position which binds all 100% of the Freedom Caucus, you have to have an 80%, you have to meet the 80% threshold. So it isn't as if we can't do anything. If 15 people in a meeting decide they want to do something, right now with the majority where it is, 15 people have a lot of power.
Let me ask about the formation of it and where it is now, because since 2015, when the Freedom Caucus was formed, it has been talked about a lot because it has tried to use its influence. I mean, in part was the reason John Boehner left, maybe even Paul Ryan, because of the way that you stuck together and really tried to force the issues. And the main issues that brought you together to form were about the debt and the deficit and reining in spending. These days, it's a question of identity. Do you believe the Freedom Caucus still stands first and foremost for those fiscal issues, or do you think it has morphed into a group that is about fealty to Donald Trump?
Well, I think there's no doubt that the Freedom Caucus grew out of the Tea Party movement, and those fiscal issues were the basis for the Tea Party movement. And that's what really started the Freedom Caucus in 2015. I think since Donald Trump has come on the scene in 2016, we see more of a populist flavor in the Republican Party, and that has affected the Freedom Caucus. So there is less.
Are you comfortable with that?
I'm not a populist. I'm a conservative, and so I'm less comfortable with the populists and how they present issues.
So does that mean, just to follow that comment that you made, does that mean that you're not as comfortable with the direction of the Freedom Caucus right now, of which you are a member?
Well, I don't know that it's the direction, but it is certainly a pressure within the Freedom Caucus, or a thread within the Freedom Caucus that has less unity or a less unified feeling in meetings.
You mentioned, and we talked about spending, there was a letter that went out from members of the Freedom Caucus to the House Speaker, Kevin McCarthy, saying that they will only support spending levels set for fiscal year 2022 below the limit set during a negotiation between Speaker McCarthy and President Biden. You didn't sign that letter. Why not?
Well, because I don't believe 2022 is enough. I just heard something today that's really disturbing. Our entire discretionary budget, so all the expenditures we have that are not entitlements, Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, that entire amount, $1.832 trillion, will be debt this year. That's just staggering. Defense and non-defense spending will all be accounted for as debt. I think we have to reverse that, and I think we have to go beyond just 2022. Remember, the numbers for federal spending went up significantly during COVID, and now we're saying we're going to just keep those post-COVID numbers. I think we've got to reverse that and go before COVID and start looking at those numbers where, to cap our
So
spending.
cuts even more. While I have you here, I want to ask about the 2024 race. You have not endorsed, but you did serve with Ron DeSantis. Many thought he would be maybe a more formidable opponent to Donald Trump than he has shown to be so far. How do you think the DeSantis campaign is going so far?
Well, I think that Donald Trump is a former president. I think he sucks all the oxygen out of the room when he does something and gets a lot of coverage. I think Ron DeSantis is slowly making progress, not necessarily in polls, but among people. I think Mike Pence is doing a great job also in reaching out to voters in Iowa and New Hampshire. I think that Tim Scott in the same way. So I think you're going to see a number of Republicans. But I think the key is what happens after Iowa and New Hampshire. And I think you'll start to see some people drop out. And when it gets to be one or two people against Donald Trump, we'll see exactly where Donald Trump is at that point.
Congressman Ken Buck, thanks for coming in. Appreciate it.
Thank you.